Good to see you. Oh, join general lobby. All right, what do you want?
Hey, so I got a few questions yesterday. I didn't get to ask all of them, so I thought I'd finish up today.
Yeah, go for it. What do you got?
Okay, so just a very quick preamble. So I went on the Katarana rant yesterday, and I just wanted to add that I love women, and so should you. We love women in this community. All
Okay.
right. So you've said many times that you enjoy streaming. Do you have some macro plan with streaming? Or will you just keep grinding? Is it just some Sigma grind set thing that you'll keep doing regardless of what money you make? Or, for instance, if I gave you like 50 million USD right now, would you be streaming tomorrow?
Yeah, I probably would. I just
Okay.
super, yeah, I enjoy streaming. I don't know.
How about 1 billion?
No, I like streaming. If you gave me 50 million or 1 billion, it's probably gonna be pretty similar no matter what, right?
Okay, sure. Um, okay, so about voting and democracy, that's the next question. So when we vote in Denmark here, I've also often ran into people who enrage me quite a bit. So I often don't vote, and some people hate me for it. But I think that if I am to vote, I also owe it to the state and to the people in general to actually be informed on the issue, right? So if I feel like I don't have time for it, mostly because of work or whatever it might be, real life stuff, then I just don't work. Then I just don't vote.
Vote, yeah.
And most people I run into, they seem to vote regardless of whatever information they have. So, for
Okay.
instance, many years ago, we voted for what currency to use in Denmark, to keep the national currency or to swap to euro, right? Which is many of the European countries, such as Germany, use that, right? And so most people I talk to, they're just like, I like the national currency, so I'll just vote to keep that. And I'll try to poke them, well, why? I don't know, I just like it, right? It's just a feeling I have. Okay, but do you know what economic consequences there'll be to voting yes or no for this swap? And I'll be like, no, I have no fucking idea, right? So I keep running into instances of that kind, and that fucking freaks me out. So I had an idea, and I'm not sure if it's stupid or not, but just because making voting harder is maybe not the best thing, but I kind of want a vote that people are required to have some basic level of information about whatever issue they're voting for, right? So if you can't answer this, you have no fucking idea what you're voting for, right?
I mean,
So
that's kind of like, that's the exchange you make in democracy. That's kind of like the deal, is that you need like an informed voter base. If they're not going to be informed, then I mean, that's on the voters, right? That's how democracy works, no?
yeah, it's on the voters, but I guess it's a consequence. I mean, it can lead to bad consequences for the country, can it not? And can we not recognize that that's maybe not the best for the country as a whole?
Sure. Yeah, having a more informed voter base is always good, of course, right?
Okay, sure. So it sounds like you would be in favor of something like that,
Well, I
or
never
what?
said I'd be in favor of something like that, because putting tests up introduces a whole other set of problems as well, right? Having a more informed voter base is good. Having tests to prevent votes are maybe not. That there's a whole other set of problems as well.
Yeah, sure. All right. So because it's just questions, I won't keep debating it. Okay, next question. I'm not sure if I'm actually allowed to ask this one. It's about it's about Voldemort, the girl that has a three-letter
Voldemort.
name.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, are you sure?
Yeah,
Are you
sure.
allowed to but?
Depending on the question, and then I'll cut it or not. Yeah.
Okay. It's not an abrasive question. So obviously that situation went on for a long time,
Yeah.
and she made clear quite a few times that um, she made it apparent quite a few times that she was seriously unwell, and also that she didn't really tell the whole story to anyone in her real life, her parents included. So I was kind of puzzled why you didn't reach out to her parents and say, hey, your daughter is actually not doing well at all. Can you sort of look into it? Well,
So the issue that I have with things like this is that I've reached out once before, to somebody's parents, and I think that parents by default, I hear this anecdotally and this happening anecdotally, parents will always just side with their kids over weird strangers on the internet. So when I talk to, how long have you been watching my stream?
XJ9.
Okay. A long time ago, like before anybody knew how to deal with like DDoS stuff or whatever, like my stream was getting DDoSed continuously for months. And I was losing a ton of shit. And I ended up like getting a full dox on the kid that was DDoSing me and everything. And I reached out to his parents to like, hey, let them know your kid is like ruining my fucking life. Like I need you to do something. And his parents, both, his dad sided against me. He said, nope, my kid is a good kid. Fuck you. My whole family's gonna fucking sue you if you don't leave my channel and blah, 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 blah. And after that, I was like, okay, this is like a waste of time. Like, so I don't know if I can like, if I were to reach out, especially because Voldemort's parents, I think, are quite old. Like if a stranger person on the internet calls them and says like, hey, I need you to do something, like I don't even know what they could do or if they would care or if they would just assume I'm crazy, and it's like, yeah, there's no point, you know. So I like never bothered.
Jesus Christ, you're so Doomerpill, Destiny. It happened one time and then you're just giving up on one.
Well, I think in general, I think that like you hear that too with like teachers will tell parents that their kids are fucked up, and you'll hear parents like, no, my kid is perfect and blah, 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 blah. My mom lost her whole daycare, and arguably like our lives were fucked completely after she quit her daycare because the one parent tried to turn her to Child Protective Services because my mom told the parent that her son had been trying to like pull down pants of like little girls or whatever. This kid was only 7. It wasn't like anything. But so yeah, I don't know. I think that parents like by default like will always side with their kids over strangers, so it's just not even worth like trying to win that battle, you know.
No, I don't know. I think I disagree, but I understand your perspective.
Sure. I mean, you could argue maybe there's nothing to lose, but I mean, at some point it's like, fuck it, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I guess. But as a parent, for instance, imagine if Nathan wasn't doing well at all and starting to lose his hair or whatever due to stress and shit. As a parent, I would want people to reach out and say, hey, maybe you should look into
Yeah,
this.
I mean,
anyway,
I would, but that's because I'm not a fucking moron. I know that my kid can fuck up and make mistakes and be dumb, but a lot of people treat their children like perfect, like little angels. And based on my interactions with V, it seems like they probably had very similar experiences growing up with nobody ever telling them that they were wrong or bad or doing anything incorrect. So their parents are probably very enabling, would be my guess, but who knows?
Yeah, I actually agree with that now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
She would. It would be very unlikely that she had well-adjusted parents. Okay, next question. So, you used to play a lot of Starcraft, and you were, as you put it yourself, semi-professional. So, what do you think held you back outside of liking Infestus too much from reaching the top level?
I think you always had a choice to make on like whether or not you could be like a professional player or a professional streamer, because a lot of the highest level people would only play and practice off stream and stuff, and there was like a dedicated thing to practicing and improving off stream, and I always wanted to maintain like the streamer route because I thought the income was more consistent. So
okay, but do you think you actually had this? Do you think you had the micro and the strategic knowledge to actually compete with players like MC or whatever?
I have no idea. I mean, at one point in time, I could take a game off any player in the world. I was able to. But winning series, probably not. If I had like quit streaming completely and only focused on pro play, maybe. But I mean, like, who's to say? Who knows? Maybe I never would have been. Maybe I would have been like competitive in the West, and that's it. And in any tournaments with Koreans, I would have lost. Like, I don't know. Who knows? It's impossible to say, right?
Yeah, no. But it could be like for a long time you tried your very best and you felt like you reached your potential. Or it could be that you felt like, I didn't actually practice that well, and I think I had more in me, so I don't know what feeling you're sitting back with now.
It's really hard to like retroactively analyze it, you know? It might be that like the height of my career was just being decent at micro and like abusing infestors when they were probably overpowered and nobody knew it. So maybe like with a ton of practice afterwards, maybe post infestor nurse, maybe I never would have gotten any better. Who knows, you know? It's really hard to say. It's impossible to like retrospectively think, you know? I know I could have been better if I wouldn't have streamed as much, if I would have focused on like professional practicing more, but maybe it wouldn't have gotten that much better, you know, who knows?
Okay, random question thought of now. What are the top 3 StarCraft 2 players that you respect the most looking back?
I don't know. I never watch like programmers or any shit like that, so it's impossible to say.
No fucking way. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I just never, even for League and everything, I just don't watch pro play. Fuck that.
Hydra, I know you love that guy.
Yeah, he was a funny dude.
Oh, I was just joking, but okay.
Oh.
But
Copy
yeah,
him,
he
copy
was
him, copy him,
insanely
copy
funny
him,
to
copy him,
watch.
copy
Holy
him,
shit.
copy him, copy him, copy him, copy him, copy him, copy him.
Okay, next question. Build a bear your girlfriend. So obviously you and Melina are very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
You're like I can sit in front of the computer for 20 hours a day and do that for 20 years in a row. And Melina obviously likes to go hiking and meet new people and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
So is that kind of person a necessity in your life to actually be happy in the long run? Or if you had a girlfriend that is essentially you as a girl, as a female, would that work for you as well in the long run? Or is that Melina component actually necessary? And I'm not trying to...
Yeah, it's always like a really hard question to answer because like on one end, having somebody that's very similar to me is like super nice because there are ways that we can get along with each other that I can't with Melina. But in other ways, having people that are way different than you is also nice because there's like aspects of life that you just don't get being with a person that is like the same as you. So I don't know. I like maybe this is why I like open relationships or polyamorous because I have the ability to get different things from different people, which is really nice. So like right now, I would say that there's like two main people I'm interested in. One is Melina and the other is Teresa, Mr. Mooten's mom. And we fuck every night. And she's got that big fucking booty. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I love you, Teresa. But no, I like whether or not you have like, that's a hard one to answer. I don't know what other people say. I'm curious. For people that have like been in successful long-term relationships, I hear different types of stories. Like I think Dan, I don't want to speak for Dan, but I think Dan is quite different from his wife. Like they like different things, they do different things. But that seems to work for him. He seems to enjoy that a lot. I like the Melinas also quite a bit differently, but I also like women that are like really similar to me too. It depends. Like yeah, I don't know if I would say like I 100% prefer one over the other.
Yeah. My take just through life experience is that you can't be completely the same. There has to be something different, but you have to be similar enough that she can understand your world, right? So if you had a complete normie that doesn't understand the streamer world, that would be a problem. Or if Melina was really into
Keep hating your life then, working class Andy.
painting,
Fucking idiot.
right? And she
I
knew
used the
a
emote
fuck ton
before
about
the ad
painting
started
history or
spamming
whatever,
it
and
for
you
the
didn't give a
on-stream
fuck about that at
convo.
all. Right?
Fuck
I
you
think
and
that
the
would
big
Hating
me
your
about
life
the
then,
filibuster
working
and you
class
see
Wait,
Andy.
hold on. I'm sorry. One second.
come and eviscerate you.
Jesus Christ. Hold on. Let me pause these. Okay. Can you repeat the
What?
last sentence again? It just Dinico needed to donate because he's not posting on Reddit enough, so he had to
Okay.
put a huge message on. Okay, go.
Okay, I was like, was it really that bad what I was saying?
No.
Anyway, it was just I think you have to have one foot in the door, right? So you have to
Yeah, there's to
understand
some
each
extent
other's-
some shared experience is necessary there, right? Like I don't think I could ever date a normie because like how could I even begin to explain like, oh, like I read a lot of posts yesterday that like you are 14-year-olds. Why would everybody be saying that? It's like, listen, you don't understand, okay? It would be impossible to explain that away to like normal human beings, especially given like so many combative interactions I have online. Like, yeah.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that. Many of the conversations I've tried to have them in real life as well, and you can actually do it. It's my experience that people actually do want to talk about taboo topics, but you just have to bring up the topic in a
There needs to be a
awkward
level of
way.
trust.
You can't be a fucking weirdo about it.
Yeah. You have to get a buy-in first where they can trust you to have the conversations and they don't think you're weird or actually like, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. But my sense is essentially if someone forces me to go on a hike, I actually end up liking it, but I'll never actually do that on my own. I remember Reckful mentioning that quite a few times as well. He was also bound to his house in certain periods of his life. Anyway, that was a complete tangent.
Okay.
Next question. Okay, this is not really an interesting question, but I kind of have to ask it. So me and my friends have discussed this a few times, but so it's a kind of stupid thought experiment. So you're now transported back to your carpet cleaner days, and you're poor as fuck, and someone comes up to you and asks you, gives you the following possibility. So you have to stay 1 year in a white room without windows, and there's basic sanitary things, shower, toilet, and so on, and a bed, but there's nothing to do. And you have to stay in there for a year, and if you can stay in there for a year, you'll get some amount of money. That's something that will make you...
I could never, not for a whole year, I couldn't do this. If we're talking like a month, maybe a week, yeah, for sure. A year is a long time. I don't think I could do a year.
Yeah, okay. I thought maybe I could if I was truly desperate, like didn't have any money at all. But outside of that, I don't think I could. But I would be quite surprised if I couldn't do it for 3 months or something like that. You think 1 month would be near impossible?
1 month would be hard, but I think I could do a month. I could do a month, yeah.
Would you go insane after 2? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know how many exact days it would take, but like a year is a long time to do nothing, to be in an area doing nothing. I think a month would be challenging. I think a month would be very challenging, but...
Dan, Big Spender Dan, if you're here, you need to put up the money so we can test this for Destiny.
Yeah.
All right. So sometimes, my mood swings a little bit. I wouldn't say I have severe depression or anything like that, but I sometimes do get stressed and like depressive symptoms. And during those times, I experience, I don't know how to explain it, being really doomerpilled on people in general. So I want to see if you ever feel something similar. So it feels like when I'm depressed that I'm not really depressed, but I'm actually just realistic in those moments about people, right? Because people are very, in general, malleable, right?
Wait, yeah, real quick. So this is depression and realistic. Like, a realistic assessment of things is fundamentally different than being depressed or optimistic. Depression or optimism are perspectives, and like observations are just what they are. So we can make observations about the world, but how we feel about them and how we respond to them is going to depend on our perspective. An optimist and a like depressed person can both be making true observations, but how they engage with them, how they feel about them, that's a matter of perspective, I think.
That is true to some degree, but there is some kind of realism usually connected to depression as well. So there's been various experiences where people had to play this small shooter arcade game, and then they asked the depressed group how many they had killed or whatever in the game, and they asked a non-depressed group how many they had killed, and the depressed people were really accurate on how many they had killed, whereas the non-depressed people usually like said they had killed like many times as much as they had actually killed in reality. So sure, there is a lot of perspective to it, but I think there is some realness to it as well.
Sure, there might be, but I'm just saying that like it's not like, oh, I've got an accurate view of the world, so now I must be depressed. Like, I don't think it has to be that way.
No, obviously, because you can view the same fact through different lenses, right, and come out either happy or depressed depending on your mood. Okay, but it relates to people in general, and it's so people are very malleable, and you see this obviously through history. So in the Second World War, it's not that entire generation was just evil out of nowhere, right? It's like they were put into a really bad economic situation, and then they were seduced by this authoritarian strongman in Hitler, right? But so people are very malleable in those situations, and that goes in general, obviously as well. So it feels like when I have these moments that integrity isn't really a thing. It just feels like people are only as good as the situation allows them to be in the moment.
Isn't that
right?
like what the Joker says in the Batman, right?
Yeah, kind of, right. And that seems kind of depressing in general. So do you ever get doomerpilled in that when you meet people like, what can we say, Bad Bunny or Vorsh or something?
No, I mean,
like
that's just reality. It is what it is. Like, people are as good as their environments allow them to be. I mean, it just kind of is how it goes, right?
Yeah. I am happy most of the time, so I don't want to give the idea that I'm some depressed fuck that thinks about this all the time. But it just, sometimes when I'm happy, I think back to it. Okay, so I like you now, but it feels fake somehow sometimes because you're only good or funny in this moment because it's an easy situation to be good or have integrity.
Yeah, sure. That's why I always say, like, you don't really know the mettle of a person or the merit of a person unless they're like dealing with something like difficult. Then you can figure out like what is the merit, like how good is a person essentially.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the last question. So I wouldn't say always, but for most of my life I've liked democracy, and I still do.
Cool.
But when I studied at university, I had a Chinese roommate, and he was actually from China, which was a very interesting experience in general to me as someone who come from a profoundly different background and culture.
Okay.
And one of the things that we talked about was obviously politics and economics. And so I started many of those talks talking about democracy as though it was a given that everyone likes democracy. And he ended up making fun of me quite a bit for that, which was very interesting. Because, yeah, obviously they have a authoritarian regime and a socialist market economy in China. So it's profoundly different. And his main argument was that, no, let's start another place. So in Denmark, democracy fits very well because we are a small country and we are very homogeneous population in general, right? People are almost the same, right? They have the same values and so on. And obviously, immigration has changed that a little bit, but as a whole, still, we're pretty homogeneous. And so democracy works very well in that situation. So if we now transport ourselves to the United States, obviously every state is very, very different. But it's not different to the same degree, I'd say, as the different regions in China. They're really, really, really profoundly different. So I'd say it works well to have representative democracy in the states, but I'm not sure that would be the case in China also. So have you ever had a thought that democracy wasn't the obvious answer for everything in all countries and regions of the world?
I mean, I don't think you need like, I mean, it depends on what kind of homogeneity you just need a homogeneity of some kind of values, basically. I don't think you need like the people all look the same or be like the same race or something. I think that there are multiple types of like homogeneity that would probably work, would be my guess.
I'm not sure I understand. So the situation is that if you have, let's say you have 10 different regions in China, I think you have 5 big ones, and they're profoundly different.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that maybe you shouldn't have one state, right? It might as well just be 5 different countries, right?
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean, well, in the United States, I mean, we have like 50 different states, right? Isn't that the kind of the point of...
Yeah, but my argument is that's still similar enough that representative democracy makes sense, but that there is, if you had a really, really small state, let's say of 100,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't feel represented at all, right? And if
well, in the United States, they do because of our system. But there are people in my chat like Pisco that fucking hate that. But in the United States, we actually, this problem is like really carefully addressed with the structure of our government. That's representative democracy, right? And maybe well,
that is
even more. Like, what country are you from? You said Denmark.
Denmark, yeah.
So you guys have like a parliament, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so and we have a parliament, but it's split into 2 separate bodies. And in one of the bodies of our parliament, every single state in our country gets 2 members that have equal voting power to 2 members of any other state, regardless of population size. So that's one of the ways that we try to control for that problem. It's kind of like how, are you familiar with how the European Union is structured?
To some degree, I'm not an expert.
So, you know, like you guys get different, our legislative body is structured like the European Union, where in the European Union, you guys have MEPs, you're members of European Parliament, and you get different numbers based on your population, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the European Commission or Council, I think the EC, every single country has 1 person that sits on that thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's our thing is structured like that. So even in really small states in the United States, they have a lot of representation in our parliament. So that's how we try to like fix for that problem, I guess, in our democracy, in our country. Yeah.
Okay, that was actually what I was referring to, but it didn't really cover it with the representative democracy. What is the word for that?
What is the word for what?
For having a fixed amount of members for each state.
I don't know, but technically it's non-representative because they technically, for the states with less populations, they have more representation per person than states with larger populations. So I don't know what you would call it, but
yeah. Okay. Anyway, but maybe it could work in China then. I'm not sure. But anyway, his main argument was then that it's so different and there's so many unique problems to each region because they're so insanely different that using some kind of democracy seems obscene. So he would much rather have an authoritarian state, right, that can make those decisions. And I kind of agree. If you could have a state like that wasn't corrupt, then I would agree. But the problem is it often ends up being corrupt in some sense, right? And it's really hard to keep it well informed in the long term, right?
Could
And
be,
that's
it's
you
difficult.
can easily see that being the problem in Russia, right? That's a really big part of why Putin hasn't made the greatest of decisions, right? Because people in his own state are actually afraid of him, right? And so they don't actually give him the correct information, so to speak. They give him
Potentially,
information, that would keep them in his favor. And so over the long haul, that can be really, really, really harmful. And I think China has some of the same problems there. But another compelling argument he gave was that companies aren't structured through democracies. So if you want to get shit done, democracy isn't really the way to go, right? And you can see that in the States as well, I should say, because you're sort of in a gridlock and have been for a long time. And you will argue, I know.
I mean, you just have to be, you have to be really, really careful about what our goals are with everything. Like for a company, democratic structures don't work, but not everybody that works at a company has to stay there, right? Whereas in our country, we kind of want people to stay. We don't want, like, in a company, I'm comfortable saying, if you don't like it, then fucking leave. If you don't like it, get the fuck out. Just, like, leave. Go to another job. But I don't want to say to somebody, like, oh, if you don't like the United States, just leave, right? We don't want to say that. Like, everybody has to be bought in for the project to work, you know? So I think that comparing a company to a country is a bit different because we want the buy-in to be higher. Like, everybody's going to be here whether we like it or not, so...
Yep. Okay, I think that was it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
No problem, Barbara. I love you. Be careful, okay?
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Okay, bye.